My name is Leslie. I am the host of the Why Not Today podcast. This is a podcast to celebrate people who have said or been courageous and said, why not today? I started this podcast in honor of my father, Patrick Kane, who often did say, why not today? I'm based in Reston, Virginia, a planned community right outside of Washington, D.C. And thanks for joining us today. And I'm excited about my guest. I don't know her well and just connected with her this week. Her name is Lynda Sunshine West. And she does lots of different things. And I always talk about where we met and how we connected. And it was one of those random scrolls through Facebook. I joined an Entrepreneurs Women group, another random, like mindless thought thing. And then she posted a post about who knows who has a podcast. And I shared mine and she's like, I need to talk to you. And she's done some cool things about overcoming fear. So we had a quick call the other day and fell in love with everything she's doing and how she's overcome fears. I'm like, she's a perfect guest for this podcast. So Lynda, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, a little bit about you and a fun fact, and then we'll get to know you and all your courage.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Leslie, for having me. Excited. I love those kinds of connections because, that's the thing is if we reach out to people and they accept our reach out, then you never know where it's going to go. And that's kind of the idea of how I live my life now, which I wasn't always that way. My name, Lynda Sunshine West, and Sunshine's not my given name. It's a name that was given to me about 6 years ago after I started my personal development journey, as well as after I broke through one fear a day for an entire year, 365 days in a row. And that's when my life really, really started changing. I have morphed and changed in so many different directions that it took me 6 years as an entrepreneur after being in the corporate world for 36 years and having 49 jobs in that.
You told me that the other day. That blew my mind.
I was shooting for 50. No, I just couldn't go for that 50,
No.
But after breaking through those fears, my whole life started changing and shifting. And it's incredible what has happened since then, because I kept trying to figure out, who am I? What do I do? And how can I make money doing that as an entrepreneur? And it took me 6 years to get there. We almost became homeless in the process because I didn't have that one piece figured out, the important piece, like how am I going to make money doing it? But I finally figured it out. And it was only 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, it was 23 months ago, that I decided that book publishing is what I was going to do full time. And so I've been doing that ever since. It's been an amazing journey. And, things just started really falling into place once I had that decision that this is what I'm going to do. And so, there's so many things I've done in these last several years.
Well, let's get into all the courage stuff. Yeah. But what's a fun fact about you?
A fun fact is that there's a lot of them. Let's see. One is that I started playing bass guitar at age 47.
Oh,
and
wow.
My husband and I started a rock band called Useless Rhetoric, and we raised over $200,000 for charity. That's like my funnest fact.
That is fun. And it's funny how you just kind of, and I definitely believe they're God winks. Like God puts these people in your path. And one of the hats I wear in my all the things I do in my life is I book music for a friend's restaurant and bar. And it's kind of funny. It's all of a sudden people around me like, oh, I'm in a band, or I know somebody in a band. I'm like, of course you do. But I think you're a little too far away. You're in San Diego, so it's probably hard to book you to play in Virginia. But that's definitely a fun fact. So I always start with these podcast episodes asking my guests, what does courage mean to you?
Courage to me is acknowledging that I'm experiencing a fearful moment, and then saying, oh, this is fear. I'm going to do this because I'm scared. To me, that's what courage is.
I love that. And it's funny, we talked about this often, but people say, they think fear is more, or courage is more, people are courageous, they just do it without fear. I'm like, oh no, definitely not.
No, not me at least.
So you wrote a book, but before you did that, tell us, I guess you did faced 365 fears in a year, which is crazy, one a day. And I was telling somebody that story the other day and they're like, wow, that's a lot of fear.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, all the little teeny tiny things we overcome. And I always talk about with Why Not Today, it's not always the big things, which we talk about on the podcast, but it's the little things. It's saying yes to, doing the thing with the friend or calling the friend or just those little things. And so I know it started kind of your journey started at 5. So share your story from there and then how you got to the facing your fears and everything else. Lots of cool
Okay.
stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I ran away at 5 years old and I was gone for a week. Now I was safe. I just went to the neighbor's house. That's the first question people always ask me. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? I just went to the neighbor's house and I was safe. But what happened during that week was something that would shape my life for the next 46 years. Nobody came to get me. So as a 5-year-old, my belief was that they didn't come to get me because they don't want me around and they don't like me. That was my belief. And so no matter what they believed, it was not my truth. My truth was that. And that's how I lived. And so after a week, my mom called the neighbor and said, okay, it's time to send her home now. She's been gone long enough. Now, I truly believe, and I cannot confirm this with my mom because she's passed away, but I truly believe that my mom was like, okay, she's safe. I know she's good. I'm number 4 of 5 kids. She's got plenty of things on her hit list, but she knew where I was. She knew I
Right.
was safe. And my mom, the way she was probably allowing me to exercise my independence as a 5-year-old. Yeah, because that's kind of how she was. And so anyway, fast forward to age 51, again, 36 years in the corporate world, 49 jobs. My last job was working for a judge in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals as a secretary. I had made my way up that ladder, that proverbial ladder.
Yeah.
And I thought that this is it. Oh my gosh, I made it. This is it. I'm so excited. And then after 14 months, I was bored as bored could be. And, I was driving to work one day and I was just so angry at my life, so angry with myself. This is how I had lived for all those years because my dad was a very volatile, abusive alcoholic. And when I came home after being gone a week, I became riddled with fears. That's where my fears started.
Wow.
That's where they started, age 5. So here I am, 51 years old. I'm driving to work. And I just started saying, why am I here? This is a waste. I'm worthless. There's no reason for me to be here. I have no purpose. And like, as a matter of fact, why is this whole planet here? It just doesn't make any sense. I was angry, yelling at myself as I'm driving, pounding my hands on the steering wheel, just filled with this anger.
Wow.
And then when I got to work that day, there was a Facebook post from someone and it said, I'm a life coach. I took some time off. I'm getting back into it. And I'm looking for 5 women who want to change their lives. I didn't know her. I didn't know what a life coach was, but I was like, I
Definitely
want to change
another
my
one of
life.
those God winks, that you just
Exactly.
happened to look at Facebook that moment in that time, kind of like how we connected.
Yes, exactly. And then I reached out, right? So that's the thing is like, I reached out because I was like, I don't know what this is, but I want to learn and I do want to change my life. That decision right in that moment was the start of my life. And I was 51. That was when my life really started. And it was August 9 years ago. So it's exciting that I'm embarking on, that the close to 10 years ago that I started my life, but it's the fears, leading up to breaking out through those fears every single day for a year. What led me to even do that? What led me to even think that I had 365 fears? I didn't know. All I knew is that I had allowed fear to stop me from doing things in my life for 46 years. Me running away at 5 was like the last extreme courageous act I had done for
Wow.
my whole life. Yeah. I let fear control me. Now, fear can control us to do things and it can control us to not do things. But fear was my factor, my fear factor. Is it controlled just the way I lived my life? If I was scared, I didn't do it. I just did not
Yeah,
do it, period.
that's
Yeah.
crazy. So you saw the life coach or started meeting with the life coach, overcoming your fears. So let's, with those fears, and I know you mentioned when you talked the other day that you didn't journal, you didn't record all your fears, which, what a great book that would be. So what's the biggest, I would say, what's the biggest, scariest one you overcame? And then what's one of the littlest ones that seems silly, but was a fear?
Well, what I love about this question is fear doesn't know size.
True.
So fear doesn't say big fear, small fear. We humans say that, right?
Right.
And so the reality is every single fear I had was astronomical to me. Now, other people might look at it and say, that's ridiculous. Why are you scared to do that? But
Yeah.
I've learned to not say that, because what they're doing is they're diminishing what's going on inside of me, right? They're minimizing it. And so so every single fear, there's a saying that false evidence appearing real, that's
Yep.
an acronym for fear. And I'm like, that's a bunch of BS, because there's no false evidence, first of all. And it doesn't appear real because it is as real can be to me,
That is
So
so
actually,
true. Yeah,
yeah, it's,
I was talking with some people yesterday, and we were talking about somebody recommended a book. I think it's called Why Is This Happening to Me? And to ask that question, and so it's just like you said, and it's such a hard thing that we do is we minimize people's fears. And as
yeah,
you said, it's so real for you. I've got a friend that's terrified of dogs, and to the point, like physically, like I saw her jump on her husband. She's 60 years old, jump on her husband's lap when the dog walked in, because she was taunted as a kid and really terrified of him because of
yeah.
that. And so it's real for her, and other people like, it's just a dog, it's a nice dog, but for her, she doesn't see that. And so, yeah, that's a good thing to remember when we talk to people about their fears, to not minimize them.
Yeah, I was talking to a woman one day, and she said, I have, I think it's called agoraphobia, where you're afraid to go outside. Like
Yes, which is a real thing. Just
yeah, and she
scary.
said she had been in her house for like, well, the whole time of COVID. She was glad because she couldn't go out, and she just went ahead and stayed inside. So I was talking to her. I said, do you want to break through that fear? Do you want to do something about it? Because if she doesn't want to do anything about it, there's no reason to even try to
Right.
get her to, right? And I wasn't trying to get her through. I was just asking her a question. And she goes, yeah, I do. I don't like living my life this way. It's just, I have terror. I'm terrified to go out. And I said, what if you did this? What if you just opened the door and put one foot out, and then you came back inside? Because now you've broken through that fear. So it
Right.
doesn't matter how much we do. It matters that we do it, that we take the action and the
That little
steps.
step.
So
And
she
then
messaged
consistently
me.
doing it.
Yeah, and I got to share this because this was, wow. She messaged me a week later. Now, I wasn't coaching her or anything. I do fear coaching, but I wasn't coaching her. I was just on a call with her one day, like having a conversation.
Mhm.
She messaged me a week later. She said, guess what I did? I went for a walk around the block today.
Wow.
She just needed somebody to say, this is all, just why don't you try one small thing, one small thing, which is huge to her,
Right.
So, yeah, so the big fear of small fear, I will share that most of my fears, that now I look at them, I'm like, they were all ridiculous.
Okay,
Like
so
every single one.
let's ask it this way. What was the most fun you had overcoming a fear? Like
Oh my gosh.
one of the things that you're like, I was so afraid of. I'm like, and and I talk about this all the time with this podcast is, you do those scary things and you're like, wow, that wasn't bad. And oh my gosh, how much fun. And why did I let this hold me back for so many years?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I could term it as fun, because every fear was very fearful for me.
Right.
However, I will share that there were some things that happened during that year that were totally unexpected. I ended up meeting somebody who became my mentor. His name is Greg Reed. He was writing a book, a collaboration book called Footsteps of the Fearless. And I actually have it right here with me today, Footsteps of the Fearless. And he was putting this book together, and he's like, you're breaking through a fear every day. This is a perfect book for you to join. And I was like, why would I do that? And I was scared because of just putting my words out there. Who wants to hear from me? Who wants to hear my message? And
Right.
he just really talked to me about it, and talked about, being in a collaboration book and how it brings people together and stuff. So he approached it from that perspective. And I love that because I wanted to connect with new people because I was breaking through all these fears. And so I joined him in that book. And that was one of the things that what I got from that one fear of being part of a collaboration book has shifted my entire life. Like from that moment was the
Wow.
moment that everything shifted. I became a book publisher because I said yes to that book. I have published 433 #1 international best-selling authors because I said yes to that one book. I've interviewed stars on the red carpet. One of my books is endorsed by Les Brown. And
It's
I
funny.
interviewed.
You say that yesterday when I was on a call and I was talking to somebody that I'd met you and she looked you up immediately. She's like, she's with Les Brown. I was like, yeah, I didn't notice that.
Well, that and like, yeah, I interviewed the president of Mexico, the country, in
Wow.
his presidential suite when he was in San Diego. And all of these things happened literally because I said yes to that book. And the reason I say that is because the connections that I made from that book led to all of these different things.
Well, and
So we never know who we're
you
going to
never
meet until we
know.
step outside of that comfort zone.
And I so believe that it's God winks and God inspired. And like, I tell people, like, when I meet somebody, I'm like, if I remember where I was when I met you, like all the details, I know you're going to be in my life forever. And you just never know who that person's going to be and who they're going to lead you to. I was walking with a friend one day and we were talking about connections and how we knew somebody. And I was walking with her that day and met her because of a connection I made with somebody when I was in college. But it was so many different iterations of connections to connections. And that's why I talk a lot about connections in this podcast, because I think that's so powerful. And just in saying yes, I was coaching one of my team members yesterday, and I said, listen to the first voice. When somebody nudges you to talk to somebody to do something, do it. Don't, because then we talk ourselves out of it. But, and just do it. I don't know if do you follow Mel Robbins at all?
I do I don't follow her, but people keep telling me that I have the same philosophies as her.
Well, she wrote a book and has a great TED Talk on the 5-second rule. And I think it's 5 seconds something, but she talks about when there's something that you don't want to do and your mind's talking you out of it, go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then just do it. You can't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because then you'll keep going. But even like getting out of bed, or making that phone call or do the fears, is just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just do it. The else I talk to, it's like it takes 10 seconds of courage to do the thing.
Yeah, there's so many things that have happened for me, like you mentioned, the God weeks, like these different things that have happened that had I thought about them, I wouldn't have done them for sure. Right. Like I had lunch with Jack Canfield, and it was through this situation that happened that I like to say, see the opportunity, then seize the opportunity. There was an opportunity presented itself to me in a split second, literally a split second, and I took advantage of that. And so it's really like, what are we allowing to slip by? Because first of all, we're not seeing the opportunity because our mind is closed. Maybe we don't see that as a possibility for us. But if we just would more look for these different opportunities, what are we going to come across? Right. I recently wrote a book called Do It Because You're Scared. Because you're scared. And here's why. What I discovered 365 days in a row, breaking through fears, what I discovered is 99.9% of the time, every fear I broke through, I was either proud of myself or I connected with somebody that I didn't know that opened a door that I didn't even know was closed. And my life has shifted for the better because I broke through those fears. So what I say is we disempower ourselves when we say things like, feel the fear and do it anyway. See, that term anyway is disempowering. Right. But when I say I'm experiencing fear, this is awesome. I'm so glad I'm experiencing fear. I'm going to do this because I'm scared, because I'm excited for what's on the other side. It's shifted my whole life. Yeah. Whole life. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I love that. So do it because you never know what's on the other side. And that's so true.
Yeah. And that's why we don't do it so often, is because we don't know what's on the other side. But if we could shift that thinking to realizing that the vast majority of the time, the results are going to be greater than you ever imagined. Why are you depriving yourself of those results?
I love that. And I do share a lot in teaching team members with Mary Kay, is you just never know who that person's going to be. And first of all, how you can change their life and bless them, but also how they may be looking for you, and you never know who that person's going to be that's going to lead you to that person, or you just never know where that person's going to lead you to.
A great example of that is I host summits. We host 6 summits a year, and I hosted one recently, and one of our speakers, I guess she really liked us. I didn't know her, but she came in as a speaker, and I haven't even connected with her, but just this last 2 days, she sent me 8 different connections for books.
Wow.
And so if I hadn't brought in these strangers to speak at my event, because I didn't know her and I haven't even had a chance to talk to her yet. If I hadn't brought these strangers into my event because I was too worried about what they might say or think or what have you, then I wouldn't have met her and she wouldn't have connected me with those, like you mentioned, the Godwings, right? Like she's connecting me with these people, and who knows where those relationships are going to go. I have no idea. I have no idea, but I'm open to it, open to every
Love
single
that.
bit of it.
And that's, I think that's what the way I live my life. And it sounds like that's why I connected with you so quickly, is just be open.
Right.
You have no idea where it's leading. And I think that's this whole Why Not Today message, I feel like, is bigger than me and really reaching out. And I think I mentioned, we talked the other day about everybody keeps saying I should write a book. And I'm like, I am not a writer. I'm a finance girl. That's my background. But just in meeting you, I'm like, and just listening to you today, I'm like, like the Jack Canfield Chicken Soup for the Soul kind of book. It could be a Why Not Today book with everybody's story, their courageous stories.
Yeah. And what I love about the collaboration, because not only are you connecting with those other people, but there's power in numbers, right? Especially everybody, like, why not today? Everybody has the same sort of theme, and so when we're coming together with the same sort of theme, this helps us to have an immediate connection. It's an immediate connection right there. So that's one of the things I absolutely love about those collaborative style books. They have been life altering for me.
Yeah.
Life altering.
Just overcoming one fear a day and just those little things. And I just love that. And I'm so glad that we got connected. So how would you encourage somebody else to say, why not today?
How would I encourage them to say, why not today? Is imagine what your life, like, what life do you want to live? What life do you want to live? Are you living that life today? And if you are, maybe why not today is not a thing for you. But if there are things that you want, places that you want to be, people you want to be surrounded by, why not you? Why not you? It's time to draw that line in the sand and cross across it and say, it's my turn. I'm ready. I'm ready to do this, whatever it is. But you got to take those steps to do it. You have to take the action. Nothing happens without action. Action Takers Publishing was actually created because I was not an action taker. I was a person who would sit back and hope things would happen for me. And because I realized that if I name my company Action Takers Publishing, that I will probably attract action takers. And if I attract action takers, I will become an action taker. We need to hang out with who we want to become. So who do you want to become? Yeah. There's a saying, I can't remember who said, Jim Rohn, I think, says, we're a reflection of the 5 people we hang out with the most.
Yeah.
In high school, if you were a smoker, you probably hung out with the smokers. If you were a band nerd like I was, you probably hung out with the bandos, right? Mm-hmm. But who are you hanging out with today? Are they helping you to get the results that you want in the future? So like by having Leslie, being a director with Mary Kay, and if you're somebody who's under Leslie, then you're following in her footsteps, but you got to follow those footsteps in order to get the results that you want to get. Yeah. So why not today? True.
Yeah. And I do pay very close attention to the people I spend time with. And I was reading a book last night from a guest I had on a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, and she wrote a book. It says, Dare to Choose Happy. And so one of the things she talked about is connections. Who are your powerful connections in your life? To make a list. And, most people, they say you only have a couple super close, powerful connections. And I am so blessed that I've got lots. And so she said to make a list of the people that you have the connections with. And before I went to bed last night, it's on one of these notes here, I made a list and I came up with 20 people that I knew that I had that great connection. Then the other thing she had you do is make a list of things that make you happy and keep them in your phone. And I'm like, simple things like lighting a candle or going for a walk or, eating ice cream, whatever those things might be. But all those things make such a difference. And I love the connections and the people we hang out with, and, surround yourself with people that are going to make you better.
Yeah. I'd love to share, because I know we got to go, but I would love to share like one exercise that I did during that year of fears, if I may.
Great. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. There were so many things. First of all, there are so many things that I learned during that year. I actually came up with over 750 quotes during the year. One of those that I shared was, see the opportunity, then seize the opportunity. But there was this exercise that my life coach had me do that I implemented during my year of fears. And that is to make a list, just like you mentioned, make a list of everything that really brings you joy, things that make you happy. They make you smile, they make you laugh, just make that list and take a week to make your list. So when you're thinking of it or you're doing it, you're like, oh, I love that thing, write it down. So you make that list. And then what I did is I took that list and I took it into my year of fears. And I said, what I'm going to do is every day I'm going to do for 5 minutes one of those things on my list. Like I'm going to make sure that part of my process is to do one of those things on my list. And so the next week, I did it for 10 minutes a day. So it might have been 2 things for 5 minutes each, or it might have been one thing for 10 minutes. Then the following week, and I just kept adding 5 minutes a day to it as I went on. And what I found was that my mindset started shifting to realize that I do deserve love. I do deserve happiness. I do deserve joy in my life. And so now the way my life is now, I'd say probably a good 80% of my life is spent in that positive mindset. I wasn't a positive person. I was very negative. I used to be a very judgmental person. I would judge people all the time. That's what I grew up in.
Yeah.
I grew up in judgment. I emulated it. I carried it forward into my life. And that was how I lived my life. So I have totally shifted everything. A lot of it came from that one exercise. There were other exercises too, of course.
Well,
but that one exercise increased your amount of joy every day, just 5 minutes.
and
5
look at
minutes a day.
your name now. You've been called Sunshine because of that.
Oh, exactly. That happened like 3 years after I broke through those fears, because people just started randomly calling me Sunshine. I remember the first time somebody called me it, I looked around, I was like, are you talking to me? Like nobody ever called me Sunshine before. And so I went ahead and adopted it as my name. And then now I believe I am Sunshine because I adopted it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I met somebody one time that I saw walking around my lake all the time. And then I met her somewhere else. I'm like, I see you all the time. She goes, oh, I know who you are. You're the person that always smiles and says hello. I'm like, what a simple thing to be known. I mean, grateful to be known for, but that you're known for that because most people don't. And it's so simple. Just, and those positive things and looking for the good. Talking about judgment in this book I was reading last night, she said, don't be judgmental, be curious. And what a different way to look at things when you're curious about it instead of judgmental. Like, somebody cuts you off in traffic and like, instead of being judgmental and mad and what a jerk they are, and like, I hope everything's okay and they don't have an emergency, and, curious what's making them in such a hurry today.
Yeah. I make up stories. I'll say something like, oh, they must be on their way to the hospital because they're having a baby or something.
Exactly.
Like I'll just make up fun, like nice, fun stories, and
we make up stories. Our brain tells us to make up the bad stories, but I really try to make up the good stories. And something recently I read, and talking about the judgmental, we're totally going off a squirrel moment, but there was a man on a train with 4 kids that were wreaking havoc, just brats, screaming and yelling, and this woman was trying to work, and she finally couldn't take it anymore. And she finally looked at the man, and she's like, do you not know how to handle your children? And he goes, no, ma'am, as a matter of fact, I have no idea how to handle my children after 2 hours after their mother passed away. And I often think about that. It's like, okay, we judge, but we don't know what's going on behind the scenes for somebody. And just be kind. And you just never know where you can bless them. Well, what a blessing you are. And I'm so grateful to have met you. And I can't wait to do other things with you and learn other things. And you've already taught me a ton. So I always try to do with the podcast also to back into like your connection with my dad, because he's who I'm honoring this podcast. And people are like, I never knew your dad. Well, of course you didn't. But so the first connection I would say is California. You live in California, you grew up in California. My dad did too. He grew up in San Fernando Valley. Talking about being on the red carpet and doing those things. He always has stories when he was kids. He would deliver newspapers to all the stars and had all those connections. But I think just your positive attitude and your connections, and just not not being afraid to ask and connect. And just, it seems like there's never been a person everybody's a friend. A stranger is just a friend to you. And I love that. And I feel like in just 2 conversations with you, connected forever. So when I come out to San Diego to see my nephew, we'll definitely have to get together in person, or if you come to the East Coast or somewhere else. So, well, thank you so much for.
I'll be coming to New York. Are you near New York?
Not really.
Okay.
I'm in DC.
Okay.
I'll be like 4 or 5 hours from New York. Well, what's New York City or?
Brooklyn. I'm coming to New York because I'll just share this, because this is one of those wow moments that I'm experiencing right now. Is I was invited to participate in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee ceremony as a person in the gifting suite. So I will be giving gifts to the inductees plus other A-list celebrities. And this is something that is happening again. This because I said yes to that one book, because the connections that I've made through that whole situation. So I'm so excited. Like, this is really happening.
That's
This
great.
is really happening.
Love that. Yeah, just say yes to those little things, and you never know
why not now?
Why not today? Exactly. Yes. So, well, thank you again for sharing, and I think we could talk forever and ever and ever. And if anybody wants to follow the podcast, we are on all the podcast places. There's a website, whynottodaypodcast.com. I will share Lynda's link in the show notes, how to access and find you and connect with you. And you're a great asset. Somebody should connect with you. And we also have Why Not Today swag, t-shirts, cups, vinyls to remind yourself just to say, why not today? So I'm always looking for courageous stories to share if anybody knows of anything, anybody listening. So again, Lynda, thank you for sharing. And it's been a pleasure to get to know you. And you know what, everybody, just say, why not today?
Why not today? Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.